Okay, so thanks so much for coming along to hear the talk. Thanks as well to the organisers for inviting me along to speak. It really is a pleasure. And yeah, likewise, I really enjoyed the first talk by Rihanna, so thanks a lot for that. So my name is Callum Wilson. I am a PhD student in the MEE department at Strathclyde. And today I'll just be sharing a wee bit of my journey in engineering and yeah, what I've been doing alongside that along the way. So for me, it also kind of starts off in high school. I'll talk a little bit about what I did back then that got me into engineering, going on to my undergraduate, which I view in two parts, the first half in the early undergraduate, and then the second half being the slightly different later undergraduate. And then I'll talk about my postgraduate studies and research up until now. So starting off with high school, the main subjects that I pursued were music, maths and physics. They are what I did in my sixth year. So music I kept up with mainly because I really enjoyed it. And maths and physics were the technical subjects that I focused on. And that was because early on in high school, I decided that I wanted to be a pilot. And so I knew that I'd need certain hires in certain technical domains. So that was what I went ahead with. Now we can see here that through music, I got a chance to do some gigs and be part of various bands. So on the left there, that's me playing in the Edinburgh School's Wind Ensemble quite a few years ago. I didn't actually have an old photo of me playing guitar, but you can tell by the length of my hair that that's actually a more recent photo of me playing guitar. But anyway, I got a lot of experience getting to play things throughout music. And one of the more notable ones I always remember was quite early on in high school. I did a solo performance with guitar and I was absolutely terrified for it and felt myself shaking slightly and feeling quite warm. And I managed to get through it okay. But afterwards, when I spoke to my friends, they said, yeah, your face was incredibly red. We really thought you were going to explode, which made sense to me because I was absolutely so nervous for it. But I do genuinely see that as the sort of first step towards getting more comfortable performing and generally talking in front of people, which I'll come back to later. So getting towards the end of high school, still thinking about the pilot thing. I didn't, strictly speaking, need a degree, but I thought it would be good to get one and go to university anyway. So I decided to pursue something that I thought would be relevant by doing aeromechanical engineering. So here I am in my early undergraduate. I briefly got to realize my dream of being a pilot when I went on the flight test course. This is something that people studying aeromechanical engineering at Strathclyde get to do, where you get to go up in a glider, control it yourself for a little bit and record a bunch of data on it. Sadly, it was probably at this point that I realized my travel sickness was really going to be a barrier to me becoming a pilot. I did enjoy the gliding experience, but not as much as I would have had it not been for the queasiness. But still, it was a really fun experience. And at that point, I decided, okay, maybe I'm better off building the planes than I would be actually flying them. Also in my early undergraduate, I tried to get involved in various clubs. So you can see on the right there, a photo from the Mountaineering Club. That was really just for fun and a way to socialize with people and get to climb up some hills. But continuing on with the music theme, I also got involved in the jazz band and the concert band. And early on with the jazz band, I actually got involved in the committee with the running of it as well, when I became the librarian in my second year. The real reason I became librarian was just because nobody else wanted to do it. And after nobody put themselves forward, I kind of nervously said, oh, well, maybe I can do that then. But that was also really rewarding. And I kept doing that for several years after this. So that was my first introduction really to being involved with societies and the union at large. So now onto my later undergraduate, which starts, I think, in the second half of my third year, because that's when I did my study abroad. So I got to study in Denmark. This was something that I'd actually wanted to do for quite a while, basically since starting university, because one of the open days, I had somebody who was really selling the idea of doing study abroad. So I was quite keen to do that and really enjoyed my semester abroad. As everybody says, these are like fantastic opportunities to meet lots of international people, as you can possibly tell from the photo there. But it also gave me experience studying at a different institution. And that was nice because it gave me slightly different skills to what I had here. So mainly I used a lot more MATLAB while I was studying abroad, and that was helpful for a lot of my future projects. One of which is the other one we see a photo of here, which was the year after I went on an ESD internship. So for those who don't know, ESD is an organization that does internships abroad, organizes internships abroad for people. And I'd originally applied and didn't get the choices that I'd made, but in a later round of internship releases, I found one that I thought looked quite nice at a Flemish manufacturing company, and then got an interview and got accepted. This ended up being quite short notice. I had a week to organize my travel to Belgium and get started, which wasn't particularly fun at the time, but once I'd got there, I really had a very fun summer spent doing some research there and getting to see a lot of Belgium, which was really good. Now, still continuing on with the music theme, I'm still involved in the jazz orchestra at this point in my later undergraduate, but now I've moved on to being the musical director. That meant I was in charge of rehearsals and meant that I was not only performing at the gigs, but I also had to do a bit of speaking at gigs. So this was really enjoyable. I really had fun working with the jazz band because it's a good group of people, but also quite rewarding and gave me, again, even more communication experience in that way. So it was also in this kind of phase of the later undergraduate that my path slightly changed towards machine learning. So still engineering related, my fourth year project was on reinforcement learning for optimal control. And I realized that this was a kind of field that I really enjoyed. So what we see here is the kind of simple control problem I was looking at called the cart pole, where the goal is it's trying to balance the pole that is attached to a cart. And I think it's really cool because these systems aren't specifically programmed to know how to control this, but they have to learn how to through interaction. And so it was through this fourth year project, I went on to do an advanced research project in fifth year. And fundamentally, that's what ended up leading on to my PhD project. My supervisor offered me it based on the work that I'd previously done in my undergraduate. So that brings me on to postgraduate, still doing the reinforcement learning, only looking at more aerospace applied problems. So you can see there a nice wee animation of the spacecraft lander control problem, which is the kind of problem I've been working on really for the past 2.5 years. And while I was doing my PhD, I also got the opportunity to do a little bit of work in association with ESA. So my supervisor found this applications open for the Frontier Development Lab Europe, which looks at ML applied space science. And I applied to it slightly on a whim, thinking, oh, that seems quite interesting. And didn't expect much, but ended up getting accepted to it. And this gave me the opportunity to go to the European Space Operations Center in Darmstadt, Germany, which you can think of as being like the sort of Houston of Europe. This is the mission control room that we're standing in there, which is where all the European space missions are managed. It's a very, very cool place. And then I had a really fun and quite challenging summer working on applying machine learning to spacecraft operations problems, which was really exciting. And I still keep in touch with FDL today with the programs that they've had since. So moving on to postgraduate as well, gave me more opportunities to give technical presentations about my research, mainly to experts, obviously, with international conferences and such, but also giving some more outreach presentations to the public. And one of the more exciting ones of these was taking part in Speak Out for Engineering. So this is a competition run by the IMechE, which challenges students to present on a technical subject to an audience that doesn't necessarily have the technical knowledge. I really enjoyed taking part. I managed to make it all the way to the global final, which was a real pleasure to be a part of, and again gave me lots of really developed my skills in communicating. Unfortunately, the global final wasn't held in Abu Dhabi in the end, so I didn't get a nice trip out there, but it was still nice to hold it virtually, and it was, yeah, really enjoyable and a worthwhile experience. So I've talked a bit about the societies that I got involved with early on in my undergraduate, and it was only when I became a postgraduate that I started to think about some other societies that would be worthwhile starting up. So these are just a couple that I helped get started. A couple of years ago, we started StratIce, the Intelligent Computational Engineering Society. And the goal of this was to bring together people across the university with an interest in computational intelligence, and also to sort of promote the work that's being done already at Strathclyde in this very broad field. And then Strathclyde Students for COVID Relief, more recent. This is obviously set up in response to the pandemic and had a focus on designing devices that could be used to help pandemic response in low-income countries. So that's been a very beneficial project that taught me a lot about design processes and things like that. And for both of these societies, I think one of the main benefits that I see of being involved in societies in most places, including Strathclyde, is the access to funding that you have. It really is incredible the amount of money that they have available for students. This was something I learned about through my work in other societies, mainly with music, but through the union and the alumni fund, you're able to get funding for all sorts of projects. And so for anybody who might have an idea about a project that they're interested in that maybe needs some funding for materials or whatever, if you get involved starting up a society, that's a great way to get started on that. So that really brings us to now. As a summary of sort of my own personal lessons from all of this, the first thing I would say is that I've harped on a lot about music this talk. The reason for that is I think I got loads of transferable skills through that shouldn't be underestimated. So coming all the way back to that guitar performance I did, I see that as a sort of original step to becoming more and more comfortable with presenting. And so being able to do events like this and participate and speak out for engineering is much, much easier thanks to the early experience I got with performing in front of crowds, even if it was terrifying to begin with. That plus being musical director and such, I learned a lot of good management skills as well. A lot of the opportunities I had were not specific things I was looking for, but rather things that I kind of stumbled upon. So think with ESD, I just kind of saw that there were other internships coming up that I thought would be interesting. And with the Frontier Development Lab, really that was my supervisor who stumbled upon it and said, oh, this, you could go and look at that. So I think it's always worthwhile keeping an eye out for opportunities. You don't necessarily need to be looking for them specifically, but seeing when they pop up. Also, simply getting involved early on in the societies led to more opportunities coming later. So it was really from becoming librarian back in second year of my undergrad when nobody else wanted to, that I started to find more opportunities within the union, eventually snowballing into starting up these or helping to start up these new societies. So if you're able to get involved, even in a very small capacity, that can lead to many other exciting things. And finally, we're clearly a kind of far cry away from back at the start when I was saying I wanted to be a pilot. And so what I wanted to do definitely changed over time. And what I actually was doing has also taken a bit of a squiggly path, I suppose. I never really thought that when I started my undergraduate, I'd end up doing a PhD in a machine learning related field, but I'm really enjoying it. And I'm always open-minded about what exactly I'll end up doing next. And yeah, really excited to see the next opportunities that will come up because of that. Okay, thanks very much for listening.